Welcome to Breaking the Chain. I'm Jacob.
And I'm Cody.
We got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah,
From
we have a lot of new
spoilers,
stuff.
RTN, all the way to just reports too.
Yeah, we have the 3 different spoilers this week. We have the Aurora Armory deck, which we got spoiled this morning. We have the Maxx Armory deck that was spoiled, I think, a few days ago or so. And then I think, wasn't it the same time that they spoiled Maxx, they spoiled Adult Valda? I think we got almost the same day.
It might have been the same day. I just remember that it was 2 different, Max was his own spoiler video, and then it was like,
right.
Oh, ProQuest, da-da-da-da-da. By the way, here's Valda.
By the way, yeah, here's Valda, and everyone's like, wait, what? Which we already knew was coming out, but we'll get to that later.
Right.
But how was your week in Flesh and Blood?
So I did a lot this week. I went to 2 RTNs, and I did not win either, unfortunately. I would say the first one didn't go too well, but I don't want to blame this, but I only got an hour of sleep going into it.
Only 1 hour of sleep?
Yeah, so
that's your superpower, though, is playing with 1 hour of sleep.
That's what I thought, but then it didn't end up going well. I went 2 and 4, but I definitely learned some things, took it in the next day, and then I did okay the next day. Still have a lot to learn. I still think my deck isn't 100% there, but I did have a lot of fun in both days. A lot of very, very close games and just good competition the whole time.
Yeah, those we'll get into later, but those were some massive RTNs that you went to as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah, because was it 6 rounds in Swiss?
6 rounds at both of them. I think it was 40. The first one was 46 to 48 players.
Something like late 40s and lower 50s for.
Yeah, it was 52 for the second one for sure.
Which is a lot of players.
It's a huge amount of players.
Yeah. Now, I had a little bit of a less exciting Flesh and Blood week. I had the 1 Armory that I went to. I actually have been trying to go to 2 armories because there's a store, Elysium, that started doing Saturday armories, but they canceled their Saturday armory because of the RTNs, because most people were going to be busy anyway. So just 1 armory for me this week.
Where's Elysium at?
Elysium's actually right by me.
Okay.
Yeah, just northwest of me. But anyway, we got a game in this week though. We actually got 2 games in this week, and you absolutely destroyed me in both of them.
The second game was closer.
The second game was a little bit closer, yeah. The first game I was playing Dash.io, and so you went first, and your turn 0 is it Imposing Visage? Is that the one that searches for the
Imposing Visage into Crumble to Eternity.
Yep.
Put a -1 on your chess piece.
My Psycho Foundry Heart. And then he arsenals a card, and I was like, okay, you guys dominate, maybe it's a CNC or something, whatever, right? Because he ended the next turn, he blocked, I think, with 3 of his cards. You also made a Seismic Surge too, on your turn 0.
Oh yeah, because I'm running Tectonic Plating into Dash.io.
Right, yeah. And so I swing my stuff. I deal a little bit of leak damage. You're left with 1 card. I'm like, okay, he's probably gonna CNC me or something. No, it's a Mangle from Arsenal. So his turn 0 hand had Imposing Visage and Mangle. So he's able to grab the Crumble to Eternity, make a Seismic Surge, and then 1 card Mangle dominate me. So that was a brutal start. Yeah. And then the second game, I just got fatigued. Kind of is what it is. I probably just misplayed it a bit because you didn't have a lot of strong turns that game. Not nearly like the Crumble Mangle that you did the last game.
No, you didn't give me a lot of the room.
Yeah,
a lot of room to play that.
I didn't give you a lot of room, but because of that, I also kind of fatigued myself. So definitely got to get better at the fatigue matchups, especially in DR when they can actually present a lot of damage too.
Yeah.
So that was my week in Flesh and Blood. And without further ado, let's get into the spoilers. We have a lot of spicy stuff. First off, the Aurora Armory deck that was spoiled this morning. Well, we had the Armory deck itself spoiled, maybe a few weeks ago, a month ago, with a couple cards.
Something.
And
I think it came in Prague that they announced it.
Maybe, yeah. It was something like a little bit ago that we got the initial spoiler that it was coming out. But now we got the full reveal and a lot of new cards with it. Mainly the equipment and a couple of main deck cards. So for starters, we already had these cards spoiled, which was Skyward Serenade and is it Skyzik? Something like that. How do you pronounce that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I don't know. I think I usually think of it as just like a sound, like not even a word, but more of the sound of lightning.
Oh, like skz or something like that. Skz.
Yes. Yeah, something like that. But I think Skizzit sounds correct to me.
Skizik maybe sounds like like the most correct. But regardless, so the Skyward Serenade is a yellow 2-block lightning runeblade action that says choose 2, create an embodiment of lightning token, search your deck for a Skizik, banish it, then shuffle. You may play it this turn, and your next attack this turn gets +1, go again. And Skizik is a red 3 attack, 3 block. If this has go again, it gets +1. So basically, you can play Skyward Serenade, choosing to make an embodiment of lightning token and to search your deck for a Skizik, and then you get to play Skizik for 4 go again. And notably, that seems just fine, right? Like, cool, you have a 4 go again. That's great, right? And this, you get it with like a semi-versatile yellow pitch 2 block. But the real benefit is on your combo turns, like your Arc Lightning, Flicker Wisp turns, where this is just now 2 extra sources of go again that you can have here. And the Skyward Serenade is also pretty flexible in the fact that you can just give your next turn +1 as well. You can create an embodiment and give your next attack +1. And they both fulfill like the lightning requirement for the Aurora hero ability. There's just like a lot of little flexibility there between them. The one downside with Skyward Serenade is that if you run out of Skiziks, it is just create a lightning embodiment of lightning token and +1. You can't find the Skizik anymore, but that's a fairly small downside, I think. But anyway, those are the old spoilers. The new ones, we got all the equipment. I don't know if I want to read out all of these. It might take a while, but basically we got a full suite of lightning equipment. Notable ones being the helmet, which says instant destroy this if you would be dealt damage by a source an opponent controls this turn. You may discard an instant card to prevent one of that damage and draw a card. Now, I don't know if you saw this, Jacob, but some people in our community pointed out in the Discord, this isn't a once per turn effect. This is for the entire turn.
Oh man, I did not. Wait, but part of the cost is destroying the card. Is it not?
Oh, maybe it's been corrected. Maybe that was the instant. Let's see. Instant destroy this. If you would be dealt damage by a source your opponent controls this turn, you may discard an instant card to prevent one of that damage and draw a card. Oh, maybe it's not anymore. Maybe it was because we got these cards as the French text first, and then people were using Google Translate to translate them to English. Maybe it's changed. Maybe now that we've seen the English translation, it doesn't work that way anyway. But how we thought it worked before was that it was continuously for the entire turn. So let's say you're playing against a Rune Blade and they have stacked Rune Chance against you. You could just filter your hand until you prevent all the Rune Chance and draw a card and basically just cycle through. But yeah, I think that doesn't work anymore actually.
So the question I have for that is, what helmet does Aurora run right now?
He currently runs, I believe, either Crown of Providence, the sync a card from hand or arsenal. Or Crown of Dominion for the gold, so that you can crack it. You can use it usually combined with the chess piece, right? The I forget the name of it. The one where if you played an attack action and a non-attack action card, you can destroy it to get 2 resources, which then lets you crack the gold. And those both count as go agains for the purpose of Arc Lightning. And so that's like the reasoning behind Crown Dominion. It's more of like an aggro. I don't think most lists run that anymore, but I know that it used to.
I know it's good for combo too because it lets you go wider on your combo turn.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the main idea, is that if you comboed with Flicker Wisp and Arc Lightning, then you would have plus, that would be 4 Arcane that you'd be doing right there alone. But yeah, so I don't think that you run this helmet. I'd be pretty surprised if any Auroras did run that helmet. It looks more like a potential Acilio helmet, but even then, I think his current helmet is pretty crucial to this combos, where you block. It's like you block with a lightning card, you can return a sigil to your hand, I believe, which lets you return the Acilio sigil, which is the one that draws you a card, and then you get to re-flash it in and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if anyone really uses that helmet unless it was not once per turn, but as is, not a great one. The other notable one is the Zap Clappers, the arms. When this defends, you may reveal an instant card from your hand. If you do, deal 1 arcane damage to the attacking hero. Now this is Blade Break 2 as well, which is actually a fairly big deal. This isn't just like a Battle Worn 1, it's a Blade Break 2. Which is some decent health. I mean, it doesn't beat Grasp of the Arc Knight in terms of how much block your arms have, because that's Battle Worn 2. I don't know for sure if these arms, if you can use it in combination with CLV, because there's been some discussion about, oh, can you block with this, reveal Channel Lightning Valley, and then instant out Channel Lightning Valley, and now you're dealing 1 arcane to them as well that they have to prevent, or else you draw a card. But I'm not sure the timing window there. Yeah, right. Like it's almost like Channel Lightning Valley, Sigil of Suffering combo on demand, right? But I don't know if there's a window there or not. I think the consensus might have been that there isn't, but we'll have to wait to hear on that one. I think if that window does exist, I think Auroras might start running this card, because you can throw it out on the last attack if they have no floating, or against a hero that just doesn't want to pitch to AB or just doesn't run AB into you. And now you have the Sigil of Suffering combo on your arms. So your arms are now blocking 2 and effectively dealing 1 arcane and drawing a card if you weren't going to have that Sigil of Suffering already, which is pretty good for arms.
I was gonna say, and the benefit is you can still have a CLV out, like the Channel Lightning Valley, and have the effect trigger on the arms. Like you can just wait until you have it out, and the opponent spends all of their stuff to block with these arms to deal the arcane damage.
You could also notably play the CLV out and then reveal another instant when you block these arms. So that it's even if that's not the case, it doesn't make them that much worse, but it's just a little less consistent to get the effect out. But yeah, like you said, you could just already have the CLV out and then block with them while you have CLV out. It's just a little more face up that way is all.
I'm kind of looking at a lot of this for the first time, because I actually haven't seen a lot of these spoilers, so I'm just kind of reading through with you. But I actually went and looked at the Shock Frock. That's a weird name. But I'm looking at the chess piece, Shock Frock, which is an action destroy this. Gain 1, activate this only if you played a lightning card this turn. Go again. It has Battle Worn 1, which actually looks like something that could be really good in like an aggro mirror, where you might think it doesn't last like 6 turns to get your like Tunic counter twice to gain the extra advantage. Well, and this has Battle Worn, so you can block a crucial on it.
I will say, it's Aether Ironweave is the one I'm thinking of, the one I can remember earlier, the chess piece that Auroras typically run. That one is kind of a strictly better card than this, if you were to ask me. Notably, this has a different requirement. This one says just if you played a lightning card, where Aether Ironweave requires you to have played an attack action card and a non-attack action card. So slightly different requirements. I don't think that that's a big jump in requirements to justify Shock Frost over Aether Ironweave, but this is like a good option for maybe a certain style of deck. This also might, I don't know what Acilio runs for their chess piece. I think they typically just run like, was it Blessing? Just the one that you crack it to gain a resource. So I think this might be a strict upgrade for Acilio, but I don't think it is for Aurora.
It's so interesting that Aether Ironweave exists, because it's like, I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Like, I was like thinking any other like lightning hero could probably use this really well, but like the Rune Blades already have a gain 2 off of a common.
Yeah, they do. I mean, this is lightning and not lightning Rune Blade, which is lets Acilio use it and maybe future lightning heroes use it. But yeah, for right now, at least for Aurora, I think Aether Weave is just strictly better.
Yeah. And I know there are some Aurora decks that don't run as many just like base actions, so maybe this is easier to activate than Aether Ironweave.
Yeah, but actually we'll get to that in a second regarding that once we're done with the spoilers and how these will affect Aurora. But I think that's going to be changing because of this Armory deck. The last piece of equipment we have are the Starlight Striders, the boots. When this defends, you may reveal an instant card from your hand. If you do, create an embodiment of lightning token, and it has Blade Break 1. I think these are just fine. I kind of get the feeling that Auroras will probably just be running either snaps or the other boots. Forget the ones that Acilio also uses, that you has Battle Worn 1 and you can like spend 1, your instants give you an action point or something like that.
I forget what they're called. I have them somewhere sitting around.
Is it Lightning
here.
Greaves? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
Lightning Greaves.
That is what it is.
I don't quite know if this is much better than Lightning Greaves. It could be. But regardless, it's a very small upgrade if it is. And then we have two main deck cards. We have Spark Spray. It's a 0 cost red, 4 attack, 2 block. When this is defended by 1 or more cards, you may pay 1. If you do, this gets +1. So it's a lightning action too. So it's a 0 for 4. You can pay 1 to make it +1 if they're defending with a card, which is interesting. It doesn't have Go Again, but it is a lightning card. It also comes in yellow. It doesn't show here in the spoiler tab, but it does actually come in yellow as well and potentially blue. But maybe there's a reason to run it in the other colors, but it just seems like an okay card for now.
I know that. Well, I was gonna say, I remember when I forget what it was. It was the original First Strike decks. They actually had the yellow and blue Spark Sprays in them. But a lot of people were like, if we ever got like red Spark Spray, this could be a really cool card.
Oh, so yellow Spark Spray already existed then?
I'm pretty sure that's what I'm remembering.
Now I'm curious. So it's First Strike Aurora.
It's like maybe we could look up on Fabric Spark Spray.
It actually does have yellow and blue Spark Spray in there. So
yeah.
This deck introduced the red pitch for Spark Spray. Interesting.
Yeah. And I remember people being like, oh, it's a break point that has extra benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough because it's a chain ender, and the deck doesn't really need more chain enders. It kind of just needs more Go Again 0 for 4s. But the flexibility of getting to turn an extra pitch into a damage is not the worst. And it's a lightning card, which a lot of like the conditional Go Again or chain ender cards in the deck are not lightning; they're elemental. And so that's a nice plus for it as well. But we'll have to see if it's good enough to fit the deck. The last major card spoiler in the deck, or maybe just last spoiler in general actually, is Written in the Stars. It's a blue block 3 lightning rune blade action that says create an embodiment of lightning token, and if you've dealt arcane damage this turn, draw a card. So this is interesting. It doesn't have Go Again, notably, which I did not actually notice the first time I looked at this card. I thought it was pretty good, but it doesn't have Go Again. So
that's so weird.
You can play this card as a chain ender, and it effectively is similar to activating your Aurora hero ability, because you're, instead of pitching to your Aurora hero ability, you're playing this card to create the embodiment. But if you were to pitch a blue to do it instead, then you would be able to swing your weapon. Is it a dagger? Whatever her weapon.
No, it's a sword.
Oh yeah, it's a sword. It's Starfall. Because with the blue, you get to pitch Starfall, and if you played a lightning card, create an embodiment of lightning token. But this is nice that if you haven't played a lightning card this turn, you get to create a embodiment of lightning, like on your maybe turn 0. It also draws a card, so you get to arsenal a new card. So the trade-off of your Starfall damage versus arsenal a card is typically better to arsenal a card, right? So there's some. I think this card is very playable. I think it's fairly easy replacement for like blue Heaven's Claws that a lot of the decks run. So I think it's a pretty strict minor upgrade for the deck.
I do really like it because it does feel really good. Like if you can't, or like instead of just pitching to create the embodiment, you can end on it. And like Aurora does not hate any card putting in arsenal. And I know that she ends up trying to get a lot of her power turns while putting a card in Arsenal and getting an embodiment, so she can like out of any card from Arsenal, or if she pulls a pretty dud hand, she can turn around and like still present a very strong turn. So it's like kind of cool because it's like different because it takes away a finisher one turn, but it could be like if you draw a bad hand where you draw multiple blues, you're like, okay, well I drew multiple blues. I can only do so much this turn. I'm going to end my turn knowing my next turn will be a lot stronger because I can arsenal any card in my deck, which is like, oh, it's a snatch. Or like if you're like running, I like how they gave us the full list to click on, but like,
yeah.
So if you're running this list, you have Snatch, Skizzit, Phantom Rush, Lightning Surge, Arcanic Crackle, Arcanic Shockwave, Entwine Lightning, Flittering Charge, Spark Spray, Static Shock. Like, any of those draws you'd be happy with if you arsenal it. On top of that, like, Burn Up Shock, Sizzle, Electrostatic Somersault, Electrostatic Discharge, Lightning Press, Arc Lightning, Skyward Serenade, you'd be super happy to get and be able to arsenal. I'd say the only 3 cards in the deck you wouldn't be happy, or maybe 4, depending with, you wouldn't be happy with. First off, I don't think Grit in the Stars, you want a second Writ in the Stars just to put in your arsenal. That, I think, is your one really bad card. If you play Written in the Stars to draw Written in the Stars, you're just like replacing a non-finisher with another non-finisher for a power turn. Well, at least with the others, it's like, well, you throw a Heaven's Claw, which is still an attack for 1 for 3. It's not the best thing to arsenal, but it's something you could. Arcanic Crackle, which when this attacks, deal an arcane damage to a hero. So it's a 0 for a 2 in a way, which you get go again with and Written in the Stars. And oddly enough, pulling up this list, there's Captain's Call in this deck.
Yeah, I saw that. Actually, one of the things I noticed that is it reprints Arc Lightning in here too. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I think it's almost like necessary for Aurora because it is like so much of her identity and how she plays.
Right. I will say this, like seeing that this deck doesn't seem like a terrible deck to have for an Armory. Right, like I think if you just add in Flicker Wisps, and even then you probably don't even need to add in Flicker Wisps. This is a very playable deck for an Armory. It has most of the main deck cards in here already. You're basically just missing some of the equipment, maybe the more powerful equipment, and like the Flicker Wisp, and you don't have Rabbles in here, so maybe you have to rely on the embodiments a little bit more. But this looks like a pretty solid Armory deck, honestly.
Right. Well, and you had I do like the idea that you have to rely on the embodiments a little more, but you have 6 new ways to create embodiments from this list now.
Yeah.
This Armory deck list has a few more blues than I think even competitive lists are running. So you have so many more opportunities to make them. But I'm actually like fairly impressed with how this looks. Because I think it introduces a lot of cool and interesting things like Shock Frock, the chess piece I was talking about. Although in a lot of scenarios, it may not be better than Ironweave, I think it is. I think it's still a really good card, and especially in a lot of decks that doesn't run a lot of non-attack action cards, still offers an opportunity to be able to activate. And in an aggressive deck, it can still be better than Tunic. I think it has the opportunity to be better than Aether Ironweave, so I'm really impressed with that. Yeah. The Cap of Quick Thinking, it's not the Crown of Providence, but it's still it's like a similar to a Crown of Providence effect in Lightning, where you reveal Lightning instant, discard it, and draw a new card. So you still cycle in a way on a turn that you need to do that. The Zap Clappers, I'm actually like highly impressed with. I think the biggest upgrade this deck can get, it looks like it's missing CLV or Channel Lightning Valley. And I think that's
true. It is missing that.
That is a very key part
of her identity.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's probably the biggest upgrade you can do in this deck. And Zap Clappers, if you can get that, all of a sudden becomes a super key piece to this that your opponent has to play around, because you can't just on the like whenever they have the CLV out, you can't just go like balls to the wall and throw everything and pitch everything away, because the opponent could just block 2 on one of your attacks and then draw an extra card. Like, it doesn't even cost anything from hand to do this, so you could just be giving them a 5 or 6 card hand.
Yeah, that's true. Is that you don't have to play the Sigil of Suffering from hand, going -1 card to get +1 card to do that ability. You can just block with your equipment and have a 6 card hand, which is pretty strong. That's actually that's a big benefit of the Zap Clappers over the Sigil. It's interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize that we could just see this whole list through the, I guess they're like their beta card gallery page.
Yeah, I saw like all the spoilers, and like there was a link in the little spoiler in the Discord. I'm like, oh, let's click on that and see what it is, and it gave the whole thing, which is nice.
Yeah.
And then finally with the Starlight Striders, I think it's like a pretty okay boots. I think like it contends pretty heavily with the Snapdragon Scalers as a common again. But it's a cool, like, interesting, like, side piece and side upgrade to like give you the opportunity to block while being a pseudo upgrade to the Snapdragon Scalers. The only like problem I think I have with it is like you can't always guarantee you'll have an instant for the turn you want to use it, and you can't use it later in the chain. You have to use it pretty early, but I don't think Aurora normally cares about that.
Yeah, but least... that's the big thing, right? Is that Snapdragons, it's used to usually bail you out of a turn of a hand that's like all attacks, right?
Right.
And no natural go again. And so the new boots don't really help you a ton with that if you don't have an instant in your hand and you still have all like 0 for 4s. It's not going to help you there because you can't activate it. So it's definitely they're interesting boots, and I think that they're a potential contender in the deck. But as of right now, Snapdragon is just a little bit more consistent.
Right. So it's like it's interesting because I really like a lot of the equipment because it's such a I personally think this deck is like a really good just like kind of entry point in a lot of ways. Whereas like some Armory decks where I looked at it and I'm like, this like deck seems okay.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit of the KO Armory deck, where it was like if this just adds Blood Rush Bellows, then you actually have a pretty strong deck. With this one, it's like, yeah, if you just add Channel Lightning Valleys and maybe Flicker Wisps, like this is a pretty strong deck.
But even with really like cool. Flicker Wisp, I think I've seen a lot of, or like at least I heard some people cutting down on them, and I think they're normally only used for like fatigue or combo matchups. Like, of course, against Jarl, who can take a slower matchup, you can like wait and combo off on them. But I think it's not like super necessary for Flicker Wisp.
No, I agree. You don't need them, but it's definitely one of the nice to have upgrades that you can put in.
Yeah. But it's like, I think it's kind of cool because you can buy this deck and probably perform pretty well with it at an Armory. Yeah. And on top of that, look to just upgrade maybe the leg pieces and put in CLV. And then I think you're actually really set to take down an Armory with this list.
Yeah, no,
maybe take out Captain's Call and replace that. But
I think that this list plus CLVs could easily win an Armory, right? Like, I think that's enough. Like, you don't even need to upgrade the equipment all that much. Obviously, better equipment helps a ton, but I think it's good enough with just CLVs added. But
I definitely see the Zap Clappers being over Grasp of the Arknight.
Right? Yeah, I think especially with CLV, it is interesting how since this deck doesn't run it, it actually makes a little bit less sense to have the Zap Clappers in it as it is. But it's definitely nice with that combo. But as a side note, one of the things that I want to bring up is that this deck adds 6 new good main deck non-attack action cards, which means that you can probably start running Face Purgatory in Aurora with a lot more consistency, which is potentially just better than Crown of Providence or Crown of Dominion, because Face Purgatory is kind of busted. It's a very strong card, and now you're running so many more non-attack action cards that you get to more consistently trigger the effect and actually get the full value out of it. So that's a pretty big upgrade.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I think it is cool how like this deck can, I feel personally feels very strong within itself to be able to perform at least within an armory. But it has like very clear paths to upgrade. Like you can upgrade the boots, and then you can upgrade the head equipment. Like maybe upgrade the chest, but like you could probably go a long time with just the base equipment set.
Yeah,
and like, be pretty happy.
Yeah, and some of the upgrades you can make aren't that large of an upgrade to really need to do it off the bat either. Like it's a nice to have thing. And some of the upgrades are just cheap. Like you could just get an 8th round weave for a couple cents on TCG Player and swap out that shock frock for it. And then the helmet, like you can even replace that helmet with just like the new Blade Beckoner helmet from the Hunted, and just have a block 2 helmet if you wanted to have that instead of the Kappa Quick Thinking, right? Like there's some easy upgrades you can do to this deck right off the bat that won't cost you much money, and it's like a very good entry into the game for new players. I think this is probably an easy deck for me to say, like, hey, are you interested? If you're interested in Flesh and Blood, pick up this Armory deck, try it out as is, and then if you like the game, add these few cards, and then it'll already be much better, and it'll be a competitive deck.
Yeah, I do really like this deck.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah, do you have anything else to say about the Aurora Armory deck? I guess
I think mostly that's all my thoughts.
It looks like if I'm seeing this release date correctly on this page, it's coming out March 14th. So that's in just over 2 weeks is when we're going to have this available, which is before Pro Tour London.
It's a lot sooner than I expected.
Yeah. So then, in that case, let's talk about the other Armory deck that we got spoiled recently, which is Armory deck Maxx Nitro. So yeah, they announced our boy Maxx, one of the many forgotten mechanologists, really.
I can't believe they made our local Tanner an entire Armory deck.
No. See, they made Dash.io another Armory deck. That's my joke, because I think that these cards, there's been 2 spoilers for this deck so far, and I think they're both currently going to be better for Dash.io than they are going to be for Maxx, unless Maxx gets a lot of support for these things.
So I've seen some. So to interject a little bit,
yeah.
It looks like you're going to put items underneath the bank breaker.
Mm-hmm.
And the strong thing about that is if you transform into the mech, you take your weapon and any item underneath it, so you can attack with your mech more. So
I see you there. Don't get me wrong. I see you there. But depending on how easy it is to do that, I don't think that the problem with Maxx decks were having enough attacks with their mechanoid. I think it was having enough attacks in the same turn with their mechanoid.
That's fair.
So like, yeah, this does give their mech a few more activations, but I don't think that was the main problem with the deck. I don't think that actually helps it much, if any. But we should maybe bring on Tanner whenever the full deck is spoiled, and we can maybe get his perspective on it. But yeah, so the new cards that we got released, the first one is a weapon, Bank Breaker. It is a twice per turn action, 1 cost attack for 3 power. Activate this only if you've cranked this turn. When this attacks, you may banish a card from underneath it. If you do, the attack gets overpower and go again. So you can activate this twice per turn for 1 resource, and it will get overpower and go again if you banish a card from underneath it. This is interesting, right? Because it's effectively pointing towards a more weapon archetype for Maxx instead of the construct Nitro Mechanoid archetype, right? Because he has been using so far it's the wrench. I forget the name of it. But
I just know it's Crank and Bank.
Yeah. And that wrench, though, it helped the game plan by having an on hit put a steam counter on an item you control with Crank, which would be a hyperdriver in that case. And so this doesn't help the Nitro Mechanoid game plan because he doesn't let you preserve your hyperdrivers as long, right? So this is pointing towards them having a completely different direction to go with Maxx instead of the construct Nitro Mechanoid game plan having maybe more mid-range or like deck damage oriented, weapon oriented game plan, but we don't have enough spoilers yet to really know how it's going to go, how effective that's going to be.
Yeah. One thing I like to add is that even on the old wrench, Maxx wasn't running it. I know he was running the Teklo pistol.
It depends, I think, on it's a sideboard, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
If they're playing against either I think it's either a fatigue matchup, or if the mech just isn't a good game plan, then they run the pistol. Because if the mech isn't a good game plan, then the wrench isn't as efficient. They don't want to do the max ability into wrench as often, because then they're just wasting damage. They want to do like a max speed,
right,
potentially end on pistols on some turns game plan instead. But yeah, I do think that this is an interesting weapon. It really is hard to evaluate at the moment, but we do have one card that helps us evaluate this a little bit, and it's the other card that they spoiled in the deck. It is called Clamp Press. It is a blue pitch, 2-cost crank item that says this enters the arena with 2 steam counters. At the start of your turn, destroy this unless you remove a steam counter from it, and wrenches you control get +2 power. So we already have one way to make this weapon a little bit stronger, and that's this Clamp Press. And notably, if you swing this bank breaker twice in a turn with a Clamp Press on the board, that is a 2-resource 10. So like a 1-card 10, kind of, depending on how hard it is to get the Clamp Press out and the items underneath the bank breaker. You could do some pretty efficient plays with this, right?
It's kind of crazy that this is an item that just kind of stays on the field that gives your wrench power. Because like, if you can get this off for 1 turn, like again, depending on how easy it is to activate this, but you can like Clamp Press this, and like the same turn bank breaker coming in for 5 go again and a 5 go again. And then the next turn, if you could do another Clamp Press, and then you can do 7 go again into 7 go again.
I was just about to say, yeah, this is not a legendary item. You can have 3 of them out on the board at the same time. So you can give your wrench +6, and that wrench can swing twice in a turn with overpower. And so you could potentially get this thing up to 9 overpower and swing it twice. So it's kind of funny how a bit resembles the Nitro Mechanoid game plan in a sense, where with Nitro Mechanoid you were swinging, I think it was 6 overpower because they had the arms that were underneath it that would give it +1. So they would typically swing 6 overpower, and now you're kind of replacing that for this bank breaker weapon that's going to swing 5, 7, 9 overpower instead. But yeah, those are the only 2 cards that we have so far, so it's kind of hard to tell how easy it's going to be to set that up, how easy it's going to be to get cards underneath the bank breaker to like have that go again and overpower. But I definitely see some good opportunities for deck building around the weapon.
One thing I was going to ask is how, like you said that this is going to apply to Dash. Is it because it actually gives her a somewhat relevant like weapon?
Yeah, so basically with the loss of High Octane, Symbiosis Shot is just not the same weapon as it used to be. You can't get as many action points on demand to empty out your Symbiosis Shot and fire off those 6 counters, right? And so you end up building up 6 counters on the Symbiosis Shot and maybe firing it like 3 or 4 times a game, because your chain enders are competing of Symbiosis Shot, Cerebellum Processor Activation to Arsenal a card, maybe just like Max V, all these chain enders that you just can't really get all these pistol counters off your Symbiosis Shot. So it just ends up being a free shoot this thing for 2 damage, right? Whereas this bank breaker in those matchups, you can just have it in there and have a 1 for 3 instead. And resources aren't typically that strict, especially when you're using this as a chain ender. And so this is kind of a strict upgrade for the matchups where you don't want to bring in Hanabi Blaster and Dio.
I guess my question is, how often do you like crank this? Is it going to be easy for you to just get this weapon and go off all the time?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that hard.
Okay.
I will say it's not that as consistent as Symbiosis Shot, right? Like you do have to have cranked an item this turn, but at least in my experience with Dio, you are cranking items pretty often, whether it's because you're playing a cranked item off of blanking on the yellow search card that is probably her
Genius.
best. Spark of Genius, yes. Yeah, off Spark of Genius, you're cranking. If you see an item off the top, you're cranking. Sometimes if you have an item in hand, you just have to play and crank it at the start of the turn. Whether it's a boom grenade or a backup protocol, you just need to you just don't have another use for it other than playing it out and cranking it out at the start of the turn. You also sometimes will crank out items purposely for the buff on Fast and Furious, the one where if you crank this turn, it gets +1, and then it's a 4 go again. So it has a breakpoint for the boom grenades. Things like that. So the requirement isn't really that much of a restriction. The one big downside of this over Symbiosis Shot is that you can't just block out or just maybe try to set up and shoot a Symbiosis Shot just by itself for your action for the turn. You have to pitch one and you have to crank that turn. So you can't just single Symbiosis Shot and pass. Not that relevant if you ask me. So that's why I think it's probably just a strict upgrade for those those matchups where you don't expect the Hanabi Blaster. But yeah, what was that?
I was gonna say, you said block out on Dash.io, and I'm like, well,
you can sometimes. Sometimes your opponent's just throwing out there a lot of damage, and your hand is a lot of blues, or sometimes it's just a threatening enough on hit that you're just like, well, I guess I'm gonna block and set up, which is usually it's either an item or it's just arsenal passing. With Symbiosis Shot, you could shoot it for 2. But yeah, it's very rare. Don't get me wrong. It's very rare that Dio just blocks out and does nothing. But yeah, it does happen. It is a factor to compare the two weapons. And then Clamp Press, I don't think Dio runs that unless we see more support for the Bank Breaker that just becomes her primary weapon, and she starts running maybe more ways to bump up the Bank Breaker, and this becomes a decent option. I could definitely see that being the case, but you can't. Notably,
the problem just being it costs 2.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't play it off the top of the deck. You can still do kind of setup with Spark of Genius, or you can BIOS update this. BIOS update being the non-attack Mechanologist action, gives your next boost attack +3, and if you banish an item this turn, you may play it for free. And so it could be a deck where you run 3 BIOS updates and you run these and maybe a Tekla Pounder or 2, and your BIOS updates are constantly getting this free 2-cost item out for that. And I could see that being an archetype, but it would really depend on what other support we get, because I don't think this is enough to run Bank Breaker and 3 BIOS updates and 3 clamps.
That's fair. Feels like the deck would have to change a lot. Like a bunch of attacks would have to cycle out, and
yeah. And like the more that you don't fulfill your 3 boost a turn requirement, which is, if you're doing that already, then you kind of want to be running Hanabi Blaster. But the more that you're doing less than 3 boosts a turn, the less likely you can do Max V, which is a very strong play, obviously. And so you're kind of moving away from your stronger game plans when you do that.
That is totally fair. And that, like, it makes it harder if you're moving away from that Max V to, like, beat your fatigue matchups. Because it definitely feels like, from the experience I've had with Dash.io the last week, 100% necessary.
Yeah, you definitely need a fatigue game plan. It can be pretty tough otherwise. The just block out a fatigue strategy into Dio sometimes just works. Sometimes it doesn't, but if you can threaten any kind of disruption whenever they let off and try to set up, then you can have the deal will be in a lot of trouble, and fatigue becomes a real threat for them. But yeah, so that's my spiel. I think the Bank Breaker is a Dash.io card. I think Clamp Press is a potential Dash.io card, but regardless, just for any of the mechs, we just need to see more before we can fully evaluate these. But it is cool that we're getting a Max Nitro Armory deck. I think that's pretty sick.
That's pretty cool. I'm still surprised to see that over Dromai, but
yeah. We'll see. I think that I saw that we're supposed to get an Armory deck in June or July.
It's kind of interesting because it looks like we get like a bunch in a row.
Yeah, we basically do. It's their whole like product release every month strategy that they announced a while back. And so what Maxx is in April, right after the Pro Tour London, which is notable. This Maxx Armory deck will not be legal for Pro Tour London, but the Aurora Armory deck will.
Okay.
This comes in the middle of April, and then in the middle of May, we get High Seas, right? And then I think it is June.
Isn't High Seas June like 6th? It's on the same day as Nationals.
Is Nationals June 6th? I actually forget what Nationals is.
I'm pretty sure it's June 6th.
It might be.
I know they had that map out at some point of all the product releases, and I remember seeing 6th. Like product. I was super surprised because it felt like, oh, look at here's the Aurora deck, and then like it's probably been a couple weeks, but like it felt like, oh, here's the Aurora deck. Like a week later, here's the Maxx deck. Let's see, big events and photos.
What is this? What is the World Championship Qualifier? Is that the new name for a PTI event? I'm looking at the.
I have no idea.
There's the National Championship, and then they call this next thing a World Championship Qualifier. It's a High Seas sealed deck event. And then they have the calling as well. Interesting. And they have a battle
Where are
heart.
you finding this?
I just googled Fab TCG US Nationals Las Vegas.
So that's what you mean.
There's 4 major events happening that weekend. That's actually kind of crazy. I didn't realize that until now. So they have a World Championship Qualifier on June 6th, which is probably a Friday. Let me see. I can't tell from now. I think it's the Friday is what it is. And so on Friday they have a High Seas sealed deck World Championship Qualifier. On Saturday they have a calling, and on Sunday they have a battle hardened. Not to mention the Nationals event that's happening the entire weekend. So that's actually a pretty busy weekend that they're going to be having.
Very busy weekend.
That's pretty cool. But yeah. So Maxx will be legal for Nationals, but not for London. And I guess I was mistaken about High Seas. I thought it was in May for some reason, and Nationals in May, but it's in June. And so maybe the next Armory deck is May before Nationals. Maybe it's in July after Nationals.
Remember they released the list somewhere, but they
had the like timeline that had things, but I don't know how to find it off the bat. But yeah, we're definitely getting the Armory deck, and maybe it's Dromai. It could actually be Dromai. I don't think that I wouldn't be surprised if it was Dromai is what I should say. I think that
imagine they sidestep us again.
Yeah, I will say I think that if High Seas doesn't have a Ranger in it, there's a decent chance there's a Lexi in a Lexi Armory deck coming up soon.
That's fair.
Or at least an Elemental Ranger, because we have 2 Rangers in the game right now. Am I crazy, or we have only 2 Rangers? Right?
Yeah, we only have 2 Rangers.
Yeah, so we're a little overdue for Rangers.
So okay, I found what I think is a picture from Star City Games.
Okay,
and it says it's loading. 1 sec.
Do they have on my phone somewhere?
So product roadmap. In November we had Jarl. In January we have set 15. March we have Aurora. April we have Maxx. May we have an Armory deck. June we have set 16. July we have an Armory deck, and then August we get obviously the best product that's going to release this year, Mass Pack, but irrelevant to right now. But yeah, we're going to get another Armory deck before Nationals. We're getting 3 Armory decks before Nationals.
Wow. So yeah, 1 Armory deck before PT London and 2 Armory decks between London and Nationals. That's crazy. That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Speaking of the Mastery Pack, what else did we get spoiled this week?
Okay, so the biggest news this week, along with the Pro Tour Insignia play, I mean, that's pretty cool, but like, that's probably gonna be too expensive for me. The big news is that they spoiled my girl, Valda, for a Valda site. What was her full title?
Yeah, what is her full title, actually?
Seismic Impact.
Seismic Impact. Oh, wait, that's a sick name. I actually didn't notice that yet.
So it's the adult version of the young Valda. Like, I was interested to see if they changed the text or anything, but it's all the same text. I think it's just reworded a little bit, but outside of that, same effect and everything. She has...
Sorry, I was showing off the... I was showing on this stream on the video, the card. I realized I could actually do that without having to edit it in.
Oh, that's cool. But... So we have Valda Seismic Impact, and she says, whenever an opponent draws one or more cards during an action phase, create that many Seismic Surge tokens. Then it says, at the start of your turn, if you control 3 or more Seismic Surge tokens, cards you own with Crush dominate this turn.
Now,
really cool.
Is that any different than her Young Hero text?
No, it's not different at all.
It's the exact same. Okay. It is the exact same.
The only thing about her growing up is she has less life.
Yeah, because what her Young Hero has, is it 21 life?
Yeah.
And she only has 40. I just noticed that.
They finally broke the rule that the Young Hero doesn't double their life. I am immensely disappointed.
Is that the one exception?
It is the one exception.
Wow.
I saw... When I saw the spoiler, I'm like, oh my goodness, she's finally here. Wait, her life is 40. Like, it was like one of the first things I noticed.
That's funny. I guess they didn't want to give us our first 42 health hero.
Yeah. I was going to say, I honestly think that having 42 life means so much, because you know how many games in Flesh and Blood go to 1-to-1 life? Mm-hmm. Now subtract like a few of those games, because you just start with 2 more life. And like CYB and Fatigue already being, I guess like this was before they, like, I think they printed this a while ago, so even before that, but they could have been worried about Fatigue just with the 2 extra life. Mm-hmm. So I honestly think like it probably was the correct decision to have her be 40 life. But personally, I wish she was 42.
Yeah, I do think it would be really cool to have had our first above 40 health starting life hero. And I feel like they maybe could have like tweaked her, maybe whether it's the cards that are going to release with her or whatever to support the 42 life. I think there's a potential for that, but it is also tough, right? Because like you said, every health point matters, and her having 2 extra health off the bat on top of being a guardian that's like leans toward the fatigue strategy, right? It could be pretty problematic. So I get why they didn't do it, but it is sad that this is breaking the young to old, or young to adult rather, life change, and we didn't get our first above 40 life hero. But she looks sick.
She looks so cool, and I definitely went a little crazy when she was spoiled. Like, she was spoiled like as I was going to work or at work, and on my first break, I literally have like a pen and paper out, and I'm doing so like I made a deck list on February, right? And I'm doing like draw 4 thing just to see some of the crazy turns I could do. So I'm literally in the break room with like 5 other people just on a like high raid writing like, okay, so if I do this, draw this, do this, do this, I'm like, I can set up for a free Spinal Crush next turn or something crazy like that.
Yeah. So what are some of the crazy things that you can do with Valda? Because I'm not a very educated Guardian player, and I'm not exactly sure how to maximize the adult Valda. So what is the best thing to do with her?
So it's going to be interesting because it looks like we're going to be getting obviously we're getting a lot of new cards, but we're going to be getting a lot of new cards. But some of the cards that we already have set that could be like super cool to at least try and run in her is you have Tectonic Rift, which is something that was printed in, let me see if I can, that was printed in, it's Evo, which is, it was the mech set.
Yeah, Bright Lights.
Bright Lights, thank you.
Create
Tectonic
X
Rift.
seismic surge tokens. Go again.
So, like, turn 0, you could pitch and make, like, 9 seismic surge if you have an all-blue hand, which is obviously Dreamland. But, like, you can do some crazy things. Like, even if you start with just 2 blues, this being one of them, you can create 3 seismic surge, activating her ability.
Isn't Dreamland for turn 0 for Valda? Isn't it Tectonic Rift? How much does Pulverize cost, actually? Is it 4? No, heave. So sorry, for the heave ability. It is 3.
Oh, 3.
So I guess it would be Tectonic Rift, pitching a blue, and then heaving a Pulverize, so that you have 6 seismic surge tokens and your arsenal still of a Pulverize. That'd be pretty good. Then you just play this for 4 the next turn, and it's 14 dominate.
But that's like an interesting card. But then you also get into a lot of the older cards, Blessing of Deliverance and Embolden. So Blessing of Deliverance is pay 2, go again. When Blessing of Deliverance enters the arena, if you have cards in your pitch zone with cost 3 or greater, draw a card. And I assume she's gonna be. This is like if you're running Earthlord Bounty. So
the chess piece, right? The one where it's is it when you draw a card on your action phase, you create a seismic surge token? Is that what it is?
It's weird. It's whenever you draw a card from an action card, create a seismic surge token.
Okay.
For each card drawn. So, like, you have Blessing of Deliverance, which, like, if you're running this, like, this is a fun list that might or might not work. We'll see. But it's like the idea is you can play Blessing of Deliverance, which you draw a card off of that, which is an action card. And at the beginning of your action phase, destroy Blessing of Deliverance and reveal the top 3 cards of your deck and gain 1 life for each 3 or greater cost revealed this way. But then you also have Embolden, and it looks like she's going to do a lot with auras. And one card that was like spoiled in a super grainy picture I'll talk about later is there's 2 auras that we know we're at least getting.
Yeah.
But Embolden is 4 cost, go again. When Embolden enters the arena, if you control another non-token aura, draw a card. So Blessing of Deliverance, or the 2 other auras with go again that we've seen so far. They're pretty grainy. So you can draw a card, and then blue version, your next Guardian attack to your next turn gets +3, or red, your next Guardian attack next turn gets +5. The nice thing is you can pitch in a Blessing and pitch into Embolden, drawing 2 cards while only pitching 2, and then you can have like Anathos on the back end coming in for 6. And you've created 2 Seismic Surge. If you're running Tectonic Plating, you can pitch into Tectonic Plating or do some other stuff.
That is a 4-card play, right? Well, sorry, not even including Anathos is a 4-card play, right? Because you have Embolden, you have Blessing, and you have the 2 pitches. So it'd be a 5-card hand to throw the Anathos. But
the thing is, you're drawing 2 cards. And Guardian decks are like 66% blue.
Oh, you're immediately drawing the card.
Yeah.
Oh.
So you have a high chance. And if you like can't activate anything, you draw your red, you just arsenal. Like, the downside is if you have a pretty red hand, it's a really bad hand, but at least it'll block 3. You can run Gorganian Tome.
Is that so? It's a 2-card effectively, assuming you're drawing 2 blues or something. That's a 2-card. You're dealing 6. You're getting 2 Seismic Surge tokens. You're gaining probably up to 3 health, and your next attack is +5. So it's 2-card potentially. 2-card 6, 9, 14. Like, if you want to count the Seismic Surges as 15 and 16, so it's like a 2-card 14 to 16. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, something like that. It's weird because the math gets all funky because Seismic Surge math is one of a really hard thing, and I can go into like.
But that's at minimum 2-card 14, right? Because you're dealing 6 with the Anathos. You're getting +5 on the next attack, and you're gaining 3.
Yeah, and there's going to be cards in here that I think are not going to be 3 costs, so you're not guaranteed to hit the 3 every time. But like you see another Blessing on top, it's a 2 cost. But like when I was doing my math and doing the draw 4, I did get a turn of Red Blessing into Red Embolden, pitching into the Anathos and Arsenaling Spinal.
Yep.
And
Okay.
So, like, in theory, so it was like something where it's like, okay, next turn I have a Spinal coming in for 14 off of 1 card from hand.
Wow.
But it's all theory crafting. But it's like kind of cool because you can play off the idea of I'm drawing cards and gaining benefit from it because you're trying to hit the 3 seismic surge count to gain dominate on your crushed effects.
Right. Yeah, you want the free dominate.
And that's why I think like Earthlow Bounty can be very beneficial to her because you're gaining benefits and then you just next turn gain the dominate.
I'm looking through. I basically did a Fabre search for any card that says draw that's legal in Valda.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how Earthlord Bounty is worded. It's just that it's whenever you draw a card from an action card, which is good because if that all you got gave you a seismic surge as well, that'd be a little busted. It is kind of sad that you can't really. There's the gold tokens don't work with it. So like clashing for a gold doesn't really give you a ton of benefit. It would have been kind of cool if you were clashing for golds and then turning those into seismic surges by drawing. But unfortunately, you can't do that. Trying to think, see
so
if
draw
anything else.
Okay. Yeah, because you can't use the gold to draw a card.
Because it's not an action card, is why.
Yeah.
Right. Or maybe it is. I don't think it is though. I think it's a token.
It's an action, but it's not an action card.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But yeah, I'm looking at all the possibilities, and it looks like it's mostly just Blessing of Deliverance. You could run even bigger than that, I guess. Oh no, that doesn't work. It's an instant.
Oh, that's an instant.
Yeah.
Gorganian Tome's an action card.
Gorganian Tome, yeah, you could run Gorg Tome.
I want to see a Valda versus Valda matchup where they're running Earthlord Bounty and they both run Gorganian Tomes. So it's like they're just like draw 1 and then draw 2. It's like the old Viscera. I don't remember if you remember Viscera from way long ago when he was running Gorg Tome. And
yeah, I do. I used to. I don't
remember if they. Yeah, I was like, I don't remember if they cited it out, but I feel like whoever got the second Gorg Tome had a huge advantage.
I think a lot of times you would cite it out just for that reason, because you didn't have a lot of ways to make sure you were the second Gorg Tome player, and if you were forced to play it first, then you were just massively behind whenever they played theirs. Wow, what an era we have left behind us. But you know what's funny? It's just the visualization of Valda running Ornate Tessin. to like,
it's not an action card again, though, is the problem.
Oh shoot, you're right.
That's like the hard part, is it has to be like an action card.
Okay, Meeps.
You could Meeps.
Mischievous Meeps is a card that will activate Earthlord Bounty.
You can finally get one of our locals on a Guardian.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, we'll just see like what else she gets, because they're like you were saying, there's the whole mastery pack that's coming out. When is that again? Is it in August or something?
Yeah, unfortunately, it was originally supposed to come out in April, but
yeah. So we're getting Valda in June, right? We're getting her in June or July.
Yeah, it's coming out it comes out with the Pro Quest season, but she's not legal until June. So I just pulled up the video a second ago. She's not legal until June 6th. That is Nationals.
June. That is Nationals? Oh.
That is Nationals.
Interesting.
Tournament legal as of June 6th.
That is interesting. Okay, wait. So that's really interesting. I just noticed that it's a prize in ProQuest Singapore, right? And ProQuest Singapore runs from April 19th to May 18th. And so she's not legal.
Think that's the isn't the that sorry. This is the pro quest to get into Singapore. Singapore itself is way later down the line.
Right. No, but is it not? It looks like the Valda promo is a top 4 prize for the ProQuest qualifiers for Singapore, unless I'm mistaken. Yeah. So what I'm trying to get at is that you're gonna have this card up to a month before she's legal. You're gonna have it in your hands, and you cannot play with her for like another month.
At least not in an official tournament.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, because originally this was supposed to come out in April, or the Guardian set. So this is where I think things get a little funky. I think they might try and give like a Valda event or something weird to give Valdas out, so it's not. Is my assumption, and that's why we're waiting is like tournament legal as of June 6th, but I might be crazy.
So I did see some discussion about that, and it was basically along the lines of why are they kind of like paywalling or gatekeeping a hero, right? And I get that from this on the surface level, like only the people that make top 4 of these pro quests are going to get this hero, and there's no other copies of it at least for a while, right? And so I get that sentiment, but at the same time, like the hero cards from these pro quests typically aren't worth that much. Like whenever you get like the rainbow foil versions of the heroes, they're typically not worth much. Obviously, Valda is a bit different because not only are there only 4 copies given to top 4, but it's also a hero that doesn't exist. So to play the hero, you need that card. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is we've already had this happen before with the Blaze promo. I think it was like a Gen Con promo, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's an event.
Yeah, there was some event, and I think they had a second event too, where there were 2 different events that gave out the Blaze promos, and then they finally released more copies. I think it was maybe at the skirmish or something, the following skirmish, maybe.
Yeah, they released a Cold Boil and the following skirmish.
Was it Cold Boil? I thought they had like an even easier to obtain one, but maybe I'm mistaken.
I think that they have at all any con that they go to is a better way to say it. I think there is a Blaze event that you can enter, and that's how they get more in circulation.
I see. She's actually already LL'd, right, in skirmish. I think, unless maybe
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure she's legal. It's just there are like 4 better Guardians than her.
I thought there was some talks about her actually already LLing.
No. It might be after this. I'm pretty sure she's still legal.
Let's see. Blaze. Oh, they did change it, right? That's what it is. I think so. If you remember, they changed the Blitz Living Legend points from 500 to 1,000.
Yeah, but they doubled everyone's points.
Did they? Okay. Well,
except for Zen's.
She's at 640 points, so that means that she would have been at 320. So I think that's what it was. Is that people were talking about her LLing before most people could even get their hands on her. But I guess she wasn't as close as I remember her to be.
Thinking about it, throughout everything we talked about, she might be the new con event promo. Now that they've gotten to try and get it out to people, like it could just be a non-foil, which is still fine.
Yeah.
But it could be something where they're like, okay, top 4 gets this, but also we're gonna be starting event. We'll have to see. Hopefully it's not just only top 4 gets to play it on June 6th.
But I guess what I'm trying to get at though is that there are going to be, I don't know how many pro quests happen, right? And how many people are going to be playing Valda, especially when she hasn't gotten all of her support yet, right? I think that people who really want to play her on release are going to be able to get a copy of her before they need to, right? They may pay a slight premium to do so. Don't get me wrong, and that's definitely something that the people who want to play her are not going to look forward to, right? But I think that it's fine to have an exclusive hero as long as they aren't like a busted hero, and I don't think she's going to be until she gets her support. I think that she's going to be a playable hero, but not busted whenever she gets released, and therefore I think it's perfectly fine to have this like kind of a pseudo exclusivity of her. Because there is a secondary market. You can pick up the card if you want. It might cost you a little bit, but it's also a promo that you can keep even after more copies are out there, and it'll still be worth something because it's a promo and it'll have a foiling that the other people won't have, right? So I think that it's a slight tax for people that are excited to play her ahead of time, but it's not a limiting factor, if that makes sense. I think that it's okay to have this happen.
That's fair. And another thing I was gonna say is like if you're just looking to play her at an armory, I don't think anyone will care if you have like the young hero card or the adult hero card.
No. So LSS, you have to have legal cards. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, for an armory,
Armory,
you could probably print out a copy of Valda, and I doubt anybody would complain that you're gonna play a C tier hero before she gets her other cards.
And it's like the hero card too. Like I know that there's been like at armories, people are like, "Oh no, I don't have the adult whoever," and we're like, just play the young version. You can pull a pack, or like you don't even have to have the hero. It doesn't even matter.
I don't even care.
Like it's just a token.
Yeah, I don't even care if people just like fully proxy equipment against me. It's like, yeah, it's fine. Like I don't want you to have to play a worse deck just because you don't want to drop a ton of money on the game, right? Like,
right.
I'm 100% in favor of proxying, but anyway, that's a whole different topic.
It is a different topic, but the idea is like, especially at armory level, I don't think you'll have to spend this money if
the only reason you have to spend this money is if you want to play it in a competitive level event. And for those that's kind of gets back to my conversation or the topic that I brought up when it came to the high seas release date for nationals, which is that if you're playing at the highest competitive level, I think that it's okay for there to be like a slight tax involved with getting your cards and getting your tools that you need to perform well, because that is part of the game, right? Part of the game is you're gonna have to spend money to do the best that you can, right? Like, and then that helps out the rest of the community, right? Whenever people are paying these prices and then it goes down after the fact, like there's this like secondhand passing down of like costs, right? Whenever the people who really need these cards are going to spend the most money on them, and then whenever that need goes away, then the market saturates and gets a little better. And so I think it's fine to have like a slight tax when it comes to competitive usage of cards. And that might be a hot take. Honestly, it probably is a pretty hot take for me. But I think it's fine to have a slight competitive tax. And that's all this means when it comes to Valda being released as a promo early, is that there's a slight competitive tax.
Yeah, fair enough. The last thing to say on the Valda is they did spoil 3 cards in a way. They're really hard to read. But first one we could talk about is Batter to a Pulp, which is a 3-block, 6-cost attack action card. We don't know the attack, but we can assume it's a 10 attack because it's a crush effect, and every crush effect so far has followed the same pattern.
Okay.
But from what it says is, if this would deal 4 or more damage, this damage can't be prevented. Crush, when this deals 4 or more damage to a hero, destroy an equipment they control with no defense value. Which is kind of interesting. I don't know how relevant the no defense value is, because I don't know a lot of decks that run equipment with 0 defense value. Like, you can destroy the Crown of Dominion with it, but it doesn't. And like,
so sorry, remind me, it says if it has 0 defense value, or if it has no, like, what I'm trying to get at is, does it differentiate between a pearl and a printed 0 defense value? Do you know?
That says no defense value, which I don't know if that means 0 defense or just literally there's nothing there, like a little pearl.
It's interesting. I wonder how that'll end up being ruled, because that is a big difference, right? Because, for example, Snapdragons, it has a 0 defense value, and so that doesn't count. Like, cards like that, it limits all the different possibilities of cards to destroy with it. And then it also brings up the case of, what if there's a cloaked item, like Enigma's arms? If you have it cloaked, is that an equipment with no defense value?
The cloak stuff, I think, like, doesn't exist until it does. Like, so it's really
can't destroy
weird.
Those, huh?
Right.
So like, what are your hits with that then? Like you said, there's Crown of Dominion.
I know they have.
Look it up. Let's see. Let's look up all equipment with no defense value. Because I don't think it's very much. That's what I'm trying to get at. Is I think.
Right. And it like can't tell if like I'm pretty sure no defense value means a pearl though. But you could still destroy that with Mangle. The interesting thing about that card specifically is I feel like only 2 Guardians can run it. And that is Bravo and Valda, because it's too expensive for Jarl. It's too expensive for Victor. It's just I personally I don't feel like it fits within the cost curve of a lot of these more like different types of Guardians. I feel like it's only going to be Valda and Bravo that are happy to run it. I also think it's interesting that the prevention effect is tied to the crush effect. I don't know how I feel about that, but
That the prevention effect is tied to. Oh yeah. But it's funny how they worded it to get around that, right? Because
yeah,
it's if this would deal for the way that it's worded makes it so that if they have a ton of ward on the board, it still does the effect, right?
mm-hmm.
Which is kind of an interesting way that they worded it. I actually can't look up Pearl defense values in February.
You can destroy Arcane Lantern.
If I can do null, no, I can't do null. You can destroy arcane. You can destroy AB in case you want to deal arcane damage. Yeah.
Well, only Arcane Lantern because Null has 0 block.
That's actually hilarious. How do I
you
find...
can destroy Calming Gesture.
Okay.
There's the Cloak of like Darkness and the Darkness set, but you'll just pop that to prevent instead.
I mean, there's definitely some... Oh,
you can destroy Quivers.
Okay, that's something.
Okay, that's relevant. Okay.
What else? I wish I knew how to search for no block equipment.
I'm just scrolling through every single piece of equipment in the game right now.
I feel like I should just look at like top deck lists to see like if there's like a meta deck that has a Pearl blocking equipment.
I'm wondering if we're gonna get more in this next set because everyone's kind of assuming there's gonna be a Ranger, and if there's Quivers in it and like Ranger stuff might have like pearls.
Yeah, that's true.
Hidden Agenda Rangers has no defense value.
Which one?
Hidden Agenda, the Ranger one.
Okay.
The Ranger chess piece.
Because like I don't know. I wonder if it's going to work on 0 defense value equipment as well.
Right.
That would open it up a lot because then not only can you destroy things, I think that makes a lot of sense because not only does it punish them for blocking with battle worn equipment that they might want to use continually, like think like Technical Foundry Heart or like maybe you could destroy like a crown of or a balance of justice before they draw, some stuff like that, right? But there's not a ton of options when it comes to Pearl equipment to destroy. So I'm thinking it might be for 0 block equipment as well.
If you're running Ultimate Pit Fight, you've got the Merchant offhands.
Oh yeah.
And you got the Educator offhands that you can destroy.
There we go. That's where Valda is gonna shine. Is an Ultimate Pit Fight.
But she's so much fun in Ultimate Pit Fight because there's so much card draw.
Yep.
Like there was once I actually played an Ultimate Pit Fight with Valda, and it's like you go around, and it's like, oh, this. Like everyone draws cards all the time.
Well, does that? Did they get the tome ban? Would that change now?
Ultimate Pit Fight only has 1 official ban, and it's York.
Oh, yeah.
No, 2 official bans. It's York and Go Bananas. Everything else is legal.
Even Scarf for a Scarf?
Maybe not promos. See, I think the thing is like
that.
In official events, but the idea is that maybe Scarf for a Scarf is legal. It's so weird because it's like it's supposed to be like I think it's similar to Commander in a way.
Yeah.
Where it's supposed to be a like game thing where you just play with friends and there's no real rules, but for like one Flesh and Blood host tournaments, because they have to have some sort of rule set, they have, let's see, but they have to some policy.
I think it probably still has some of the same bans, at least when it comes to like the basic ones. Like you can't run like the Rudy promos and the Go Bananas and Scarf for Scarps and stuff like that. I assume that it has those, but I could be wrong.
Ultimate Pit Fight multiplayer. Ultimate Pit Fight is a casual format and includes every Flesh and Blood card, including special use promos. The only banned cards are Go Bananas and York. So any special use promos are legal in tournament events. So Scarf for a Scarf is legal.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. Huh. All right, so then she's pretty good in UPF.
And then
because and then there's some other release cards in there too. But do you know what the text on those is?
1 second. This is gonna look super weird and probably hurt my eyes. I know I heard the text on one. So one of them is really covered by participation. The only part we see is when this enters the arena, each hero a card. So you think it's draw a card. Mm-hmm. So each hero draws a card, which if you're running Earthlord Bounty is a 0 cost 2 Seismic Surge. And then there's more text, but we can't see it. And then there's Promising Terrain, which says the next.
You're like squinting to look at the text.
I know. So blurry. If you would create 1 or more Seismic Surge, create that many +1, and at the beginning of your action phase, destroy this. And if you control 3 or more Seismic Surge, draw a card and gain 1 life. Gain some amount of life. So it helps you create Seismic Surge. And at the beginning of your turn, if you have 3 or more Seismic Surge, destroy it and you gain that many life.
Okay. So it's like a blessing of deliverance in a way.
In a weird way, it's different because it helps you create more Seismic Surge. Mm-hmm. So, like, you could play that into, like, Tectonic Blading, creating 2. You could play that into Blessing and create 2 off of drawing a card. Like, you could play that, and it's an aura that sticks around for turn. So if you play that and the opponent draws a card, you create 2 Seismic Surge, which is a lot harder to rely on. But, like, you can do a lot of... You can play that into, like, Gorganian Tome, create 2 into something else, like... Tectonic Plating, and then you have 4, and you've spent like 1 pitch to create 4.
Yeah, and it heals you, right? So it kind of gets its value back in a sense already.
Yeah.
So
the idea is you want to be able to play it and create a lot of Seismic Surge with it. It is a 0 cost block 3, which is beneficial. It's kind of interesting. No, it's blue.
Oh.
It's kind of interesting. I know. Yeah. The problem I'm seeing is a lot of the auras, I'm seeing with a lot of the auras is they cost 0, which means they don't work with Blessing.
Yeah, they also don't work with Anathos or Titan's Fist. Some other cards that want that,
I was talking to someone.
It's worse with Zealous Belting to have all those non-attacks. Yeah. But anyway.
It's like I was talking to someone the other day. Like, it would be super interesting to get a Guardian, like a new Guardian Hammer that's not Titan's Fist, or like I love Anathos, but not Anathos. Like, it breaks the cost curve, effect. Like, so much of Guardian is built around costing so much, and that's like,
what if it was Titan's Fist, but instead of needing a 3 cost or greater in your pitch zone, you just need to have made a Seismic Surge, maybe made or break a Seismic Surge that turn.
See, that's exactly what I was thinking, where it's like a 3 for 3, but if you control a Seismic Surge, it comes in for 4.
Well,
and then all of a sudden it completely...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it breaks that paradigm where Guardian decks have to have 3 costs, which, I love my 3 cost Guardian decks, and I think it works really well with some of them, like Bravo. But, like, you have heroes like Jarl, and it looks like Valda may be the same way, where it's like they run a lot of, like, really low to the ground cost to get all these weird effects, but still big attacks. But now these hammers are like, oh, I'm swinging 3 half the time because I didn't have a 3 cost this turn, you
Yep.
know?
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting too to have that effect. But I think that what's nice about having the additional clause of if a seismic surge has been destroyed this turn too, is that sometimes I feel like a lot of times Guardians, when I play against them, they'll make a seismic surge and the next turn they just hammer and it just feels like it goes to waste. And then it wouldn't feel like it went to waste that way, right? Because you could make a seismic surge the previous turn, and then if you're just going to hammer, you still get your value out of the seismic surge by having to activate your hammer. So I think it'd be a cool design to like you said, help alleviate the requirement of 3 cost or graders in the deck when you want to run a lot less of those these days in typical Guardian decks.
Right, and you see them like trying to break away from that paradigm with the
Rotwood
again, the first strike deck, with Rotwood, where it's like if you've pitched an Earth card, it gets +1, which is really cool. And you see that y'all using that sometimes.
So I think that will be I would be surprised if that isn't a hammer in the mastery pack, just to give that extra archetype a little more legs. But yeah, I think that would be like the next way to go, is like to give some, because they're already showing that they really want to give a lot more seismic surge support with is it like, it's like seismic something, the one where you can destroy auras that they release in the Hunted.
Oh yeah,
whatever it is, whatever the name is, they seem to be
Fissure.
Rolling Fissure, and then they also have like the AB boots or something that if you had a seismic surge
boots,
stuff like that, right? So it seems like they're going a lot further into the seismic surge theme or rewards and payoffs and stuff. So I think it makes a lot of sense. But
I think it would do a lot of really cool and interesting things if they do that. One, I think it'd be good for like getting into the game, because instead of having to buy Tunic to play Guardian, because you have to have Tunic to play Guardian, because tectonic plating really doesn't do much except for block 3. You like all of a sudden you get all these benefits for having seismic surge, so now you actually kind of want to run tectonic plating. So it's like having these cards will benefit in that way. So it's like, oh, okay, so like I can have tectonic plating, and because I have tectonic plating, we have our own like Codex of Frailty that does some like crazy stuff because I have this. And it's like all of a sudden you're like, tectonic plating is like, maybe it's not as good on some turns and you can't run pummel anymore, but like I get this extra effect and it gives this, and it goes into a different play style, and it allows for people to like jump in the game and feel really good about, like, I personally love my tectonic plating. I play it way more than I should, but it's like it allows people to like jump into the game and not feel like they're already losing because they don't have a Tunic. And it's like, if
I was gonna bring up though, tectonic plating is a welcome to Wraith legendary, right?
Yes.
Now we did just see Syndra get released and become popular and kind of require a different welcome to Wraith legendary, so I guess this is probably less likely to happen. But I do wonder if there's any consideration of reprinting a tectonic plating if they're going into this heavy seismic surge archetype, you know.
So kind of my assumption or my thought was that they're going to do it in this Guardian Mastery pack, because they did it with like Bright Lights, because it's like it was a similar thing. It was pretty much a Mastery pack before Mastery packs were things. And they reprinted Heart of Fate, the Foundry Heart.
Sorry, this is a side topic. I'll bring it up after.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, they reprinted it there, and I could see it happening again. Like, if they develop this seismic surge thing and make it that important, it could just be that Valda cares, and so it's like, oh, we only need Earthlore Bounty, and I'm sure there's thousands of Earthlore Bounties out there. I have 2 extended art cold foil Earthlore
it was only
Bounties.
Like,
there's a lot of them out there. So it's something where I'm like, I'm sure that, like, if she's the only one that really cares, then it's not a huge deal. But if they make it like a class relevant like archetype, I'm hoping, and I have a like feeling that it's like a similar thing as Bright Lights, where they're gonna reprint it and just make it non-foil.
Yeah, we could definitely see that happen. But yeah, like you said, Valda probably doesn't run it, and it would really just be for the Guardians. But I was gonna say, kind of like how you when you just mentioned that Bright Lights was a mastery pack before mastery packs were a thing. There is a notable difference that the Guardian Mastery Pack is not a draftable set, but I wish it was, because I feel like it'd be sick to draft 1 of 3 Guardians and be in a draft of just all different types of Guardians, whether it's like Seismic Surge synergy or just going for a lot of overpower, dominate, whatever, or I don't know, like I think it would be a cool draft to have different Guardian archetypes.
So what's interesting is I actually heard them, I can't remember where this was, and it was a while ago, but when like it was first brought up, the idea of crack shuffle play was not actually in design of Bright Lights. They built the set, and then someone had brought it up in their facility, like, oh, you could just like take 3 packs, shuffle them together, and play a deck.
Yeah.
And that's how these like mastery pack idea came up. Or this is because they're like, oh, like crack shuffle play. Just like take 3 packs, shuffle them together, and you got a deck. And it'll be like interesting because I feel like all the equipment and everything that is not deck viable will be in the token slots. So you don't have to do that awkward thing in like Bright Lights where you're like, okay, open 3 packs, then take out all the cards that don't actually fit, and then you can shuffle them together and play the decks like that. Well, it's just take the 2 back out, shuffle your deck together, there's your equipment, you have all the tokens you need, and it'll be cool. Because I remember when Mastery Pack came out, I was playing with like my cousin and a couple other casual people, and they're like, this would be so much more fun if I didn't have to look at my deck to play this. Like if I just sat down, took out the tokens, and just hand by hand learned my deck, that would be super cool. So right. I'm hoping, please, let the like last 2 spots be like, oh, here's your token and equipment from this pack. Here's your token and equipment from this pack. Yeah. So you can just sit down and like play your deck without having to look at it. But we'll see.
Yeah, and it's much more likely, right? Because they don't have to have an equipment slot for the draft portion of it for the mastery pack. Because if it's not made for draft, they don't need to have all these token equipment in the token slot. So that is actually a pretty relevant thing. I will say you wouldn't have any equipment at all, probably, if that were the case. But I mean, you can just go crack shuffle play without any equipment and just have, your weapon and hero or whatever.
Well, I imagine the only token's going to be Seismic Surge. It's not going to be like the most, from what I can tell from here, my 10,000 foot view looking in at this tiny little village. I assume it's going to be Seismic Surge, which will allow it to be like, oh, here's a Seismic Surge token. On the back's like your weapon token. Oh, here's a hero token. Here's a hero token. So like you have 1 token slot dedicated to like heroes and Seismic Surges, and then you have 1 token slot dedicated to like maybe expansion slot cards. And if they
could also just be like a weapon or something too for the other token.
Yeah. Or like equipment. Like so you have like what each pack has. Here's your pack. Here's your equipment. Here's the tokens you'll need.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. All right, with that, we are at about an hour and a half. We have one last, I guess, major topic to talk about, which is the RTN Week 3 results. So I have those pulled up here. So just a quick little overview. Our number 1 Classic Constructed RTN winner is Viserai at 24 wins, which does LL him, as many of you have probably already heard. Viserai is officially gone, the first non-talented hero to LL. So that was pretty crazy. I think you were on the nose, whatever however that phrase goes, about people taking Viserai out for one last go, and his play rate staying up there for that reason. It shows number 1 winner, 24 wins, which gaps New in second place by 10 wins. So Viserai had 24 wins. Second place, New had 14 wins. Just a huge gap in wins there. Viserai was just dominating these RTNs. And then New is shortly followed by Aurora at 13 wins. And then Prism is 4th at 10 wins, tied with Syndra at 10 wins. So Syndra drops all the way from the second most winning RTN hero to the 5th, which is actually a pretty big jump. And then shortly following Syndra is Vincent at 7 wins. Vincent takes a total of 7 wins this week compared to, let's see, how many did she have last week?
Crazy amount.
She had, is it 2? No, she had 4 last week, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But I think she's taken more of the meta share this week, which is cool.
Yeah, she's definitely a bigger block with the meta share. And those are like the most notable ones. Then we have the rest of the expected heroes down there. Jarl actually is one of them, though.
Good news. He won 4.
And
he's not irrelevant.
Not only did he get his first RTN win, he went to 4 wins this week. He went from 0 wins the first 2 weeks to 4 wins this week, which is kind of crazy. It's a big jump.
Kind of odd because Viserai showed up a lot. It's weird because in our local meta, at least, Viserai dropped off, which really surprised me. Like, there were only like 3 Viserai at a 52 event, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I might be off by 1 or 2.
And we had like Syndra? We had a ton of Syndra.
We had like 7 to 9 prisms.
I thought it was like 5 prisms.
It was something crazy. One of the events, I think we had like 7 prisms. Let's see.
I'll have in a second here. I'm pretty sure we had mostly... Okay, here we go. We had at the Advantage RTN, which had 48 players, we had 6 Syndra and 6 Prism. That is actually a lot of Prism. And then it was like 3 here, 3 after that. And then for level 7 RTN, which had 52 players, we had 9 Syndra. And then the second most brought hero was Azalea at 4. Syndra was the lead by a lot there. And then there was actually only 3 Prism at that one. So the Prism numbers doubled at the second RTN. And the Syndra numbers almost halved at the second RTN.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, so Jarl got 4 wins, which is his very first RTN wins. And then he actually got 4 of them, which is pretty cool.
Unfortunately, I won't be able to take him to another RTN because there are no more RTNs near us.
Not near us. There was an advertisement for, I think there was one in Utah, maybe? No, not Utah. What state was it? They were advertising one of the nearby states that had an RTN. It wasn't Wyoming. But anyway, yeah, we don't have any here for the last weekend. We had all of our RTNs the first 3 weeks. But yeah, so that was the week 3. We mentioned the notable changes of Prism and Syndra and Vincent and Jarl. Did you want to go any further into your RTN experience?
We can save that for another day. I know that we're going pretty long here.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about it next week since we don't have any RTNs next week to talk about, at least local RTNs. All right. We do have one question to leave you all with, which is, we've gotten all these Armory decks lately. What Armory deck do you want to see next, and why is it Dromai? I think there are actually a lot of good options, a lot of good guesses for the next Armory deck. It could even be that we get a new hero entirely, like we did with Jarl. There could just be a whole new hero. Maybe it's Lexi 2, but it's not actually Lexi. It's just another Elemental Ranger. Anyway, I don't want to give you guys too many ideas. I want you to come up with your own ideas and give us an idea, or give us your best guess, and we'll read them out on the next episode, and we'll have a prediction for the upcoming Armory deck. But yeah, with that being said, I'm Cody.
And I'm Jacob.
And thanks for listening to Breaking the Chain podcast.